Sahana Vavatu, Sahanao Bhunaktu, Sahaviryam Karavavahai, Tejasvina Vadhitamastu, Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Your worth is not connected to what happens to you. Because what happens to you is really beyond your control. Sometimes you might invest mindfulness, dedication, and care in your activity and give it your best and truly care and invest that energy and sincerity. However, it's unrealistic to have a certain outcome in mind because there are always 4 possibilities. Not only can you get more of than you think you need or deserve, you might equally get less of. Totally opposite, or get exactly what you were looking for. There's 4 possibilities. I put in action with care, deliberation, effort, sincerity. You find that the other recipient may not see that. And so if I'm looking for my worth in the other to recognize me as that hardworking, sincere individual, then you're asking for time of disappointment because there are always 4 possibilities. You're literally setting yourself up for discontent because life is nuanced, and nuances means someone may not even see that. In fact, most are busy. You're even busy to see that how many have actually contributed to your being here today. In fact, even those who have given you the hardest time of your life, were they not some of the best contributors to your maturity today? Yes. So initially, it might have seemed that this is not what I want. Later on, you might discover, if I didn't have that, I would have not been the person that I appreciate myself to be today. Thereby, this message is the core or the crux of having a relative equanimity, a relative amount of composure based on what's happening to you, around you, with you, on you, beside you every day. Your worth does not depend on outcomes. Let's really bring this message down. Understand what it means. Your worth, your sense of, I am a deserving human being, I'm a good, worthwhile human being, it does not and has never depended upon what happens to you. Because what happens to you are a collection of many variables put together that are beyond your perception, that have originated long before you were born here. And those variables are now determining what you are receiving today. For instance, the world that we live in today is what we can call the world that is happening in your life. So 2026 is happening to me. That's a direct first-person statement, a universal statement. But 2026 is happening to me because of everything that's happened in 2021, 2012, 2007, when the phone, the mobile smartphone came to be, and even before when social media came to be. So we have to firstly acknowledge this basic principle. Your worth right now, what you deserve, it was never based on, and never will be based on, how you are treated, when you are treated, whether you're treated politely or impolitely, whether people see that character in you, that hard worker, that nurturer, that nourisher, that gentle force in you, whether the world recognizes that or not, that makes no claim nor bearing on you as one of many participants who is equally blessed, all of the skills and capacities to figure it out for yourself. So let us really just bring this down right now, because this is really the foundation of what it means to be a contentful, discerning human being. If you allow circumstances to consistently dictate how you are to experience yourself in this world, then it's impossible to really live a life of composure, because those four are always possible. I can get more of than I wanted. That means you put out an action, and whatever comes back, it's much more. It's like, wow, thank you. This was wonderful. I wasn't expecting that, but it's welcome. It's a bonus. You got more than you expected. You got exactly as expected. Again, thank you. This is how life is supposed to be. Get exactly what you expected. But then you question your experience, and then you ask yourself, is it always like that? Do I always get exactly as I expected or more than I expected? No. Therefore, there has to be two more, because that's only one side that we all want. The other side is I got less than. That means though I put that hard work and investment, I didn't get at all what, generally a human being would, consider fair. I got what was considered unfair. That's another possibility. Or I got totally opposite. I wanted to help, but that help turned into turning me into the villain. Did you ever have that in your life? You were there for someone, gave some advice, totally sincere, and that was used against you months or maybe a year or so later. And you're like, oh man, seriously, why? In that moment, your worth is not connected to how you are treated by the world. Because everyone is too busy also thinking, I want to be treated well. So if you're thinking, I want to be treated well by you, and the other's thinking, I want to be treated well by you, then we're always really thinking one thing, I want to be treated well. But no one's really acknowledging that because everyone's thinking to be treated well, all the processing power is going in that one desire alone. No one's really thinking about truly giving without an agenda, just because you can give, because you're relaxed. So if there is an agenda, then you can't be relaxed. And if I cannot be relaxed because I have an agenda to be validated, to be approved, to be told how I am so worthy, and be recognized at one fine day for all my lovely efforts. Oh, you have done so well for me. You have sacrificed 20 years of my life. And then when we turn 90 years old, you're still waiting for that recognition. It never comes. So this is Krishna's statement. And thus he, in verse 21, continues, and we will chant it after I explain first. He says, the wise person is thus nirashihi. He is free, or she is free from expectation. Now, what do you think this means, free from expectation? Do you think that this might mean that they don't care what happens to them? Like you just totally don't care how you get treated? No. It means that we let go that something amazing is supposed to happen to me. This idea that someone amazing is supposed to walk into my life. My mind's supposed to be one day amazingly clean. I'm supposed to one day get rid of all of my trauma and all those inner voices that are annoying me. One day I'm supposed to have that amazing breakthrough. One day I'm supposed to just suddenly, drop all my, complaints and negativity and just be an amazing human being. One day, I'm just going to have an amazing job. So we drop this idea that these things are supposed to happen to me, because in reality, there's always 4 possibilities. And so being able to accept this, what do you think and how might this have a transformation, perhaps a little change on you? When you drop this idea that something amazing should happen to me, what do you think could be the byproduct of this?
You could find that just everything's amazing, just with the right mindset.
Good. Everything can be amazing or can be worthy of gratitude because at least I have it in my life. And it's never really about what happens to you, is it? It's always about what you do with what happens to you. In fact, what I do with what happens to me can either be something that stifles me, or it can be a breakthrough of itself. So this is the essence of karma yoga. Every karma pala, every result is a yoga, is an opportunity to discover something about yourself, about human nature, about the real meaning of life, about de-entangling, what it means to truly be de-entangled from things, but still be in things, with things, participating with things. Everything becomes a yoga. So in this sense, as David said, everything is a blessing if you choose it to be that way. Because is there any other choice? What's the only other choice? Suppose you say, no, this is all a whole, hogwash. Okay, what's the other choice, please? Tell me.
You're angry most of the time because most of the time you're not getting the results that you want.
Exactly. And bitter and resentful. And then projecting that outwards, because it's a lot easier to do that than to own up and take accountability, which then further narrows down me, from investigating and appreciating what I already do have. So it's really your choice. I mean, this is so simple, but it's so powerful. There really is nothing else. There's no secret formula. You can read, you and I, let's go to a library right now. You know that moment when you just smell that permeating air of the books, that good old smell when before internet was there. Yeah. And it's almost like the smell itself makes you appreciate the wisdom You just want to open the book and smell it and go, oh, let me just smell knowledge. Good times. And you're looking now through all these books for a secret ingredient, a magical formula. And what you might discover is at the end of your search over 10,000 years, suppose you live that long, you're still asking, what's the secret formula? And then you go, what Krishna said, there's no secret formula. Just really, as David said also, what happens to me, I can either turn that into the greatest book of itself or a drama. I author my own life. I write books every time something comes in my life. And then you realize I don't have to go and read every book, what every other author has figured out. In fact, what every author is really pointing me to is to be an author of my own life. I'm not talking about, now the law of secret and all that. I'm just talking about general owning up that I have a choice. There's only two choices, really. Of course, there's nuances in between, but the two choices are very simple. Either everything becomes a learning opportunity where I can extract a lesson out of it, or it becomes a source for complaint and blame. Why me? This is unfair. Nothing is working. Even the statement, nothing is working, or the classes are not working, even that becomes your own authorship. Do you think that is supposed to work overnight? Within a month? Within a year? How about this? How about 20 years? Are you okay with that? 20 years. 20 years for decently contentful change. 20 years minimum. How about that? Who's up for that? I definitely put my hand up for that. I hope you join me. I see no hands up. Okay, good. 20 years for decent change. Not 1 year, not 2, not 5. 5 is nothing. Really nothing. How about 10? Okay, 10 is okay. But 5 is also okay, but definitely, 5, 10, 15, 20 in those portions. That's real change. So there's no secret formula here. Therefore, coming to own up that this need for things turning out my way and just relinquishing this notion that really it's a childlike notion. It's okay. Well, one has to grow out of it. What happens? Yata chit atma, that is what's called mastery of the mind. We speak of mastery of the mind. It's very simple. What is mastery of the mind? Dropping the need to have things turn out in a certain manner. That's it. That's mastery of the mind. That's maturity. How may this mastery, this need to, or this relinquishment of certain expectations turning out my way, how might that influence you? How might that directly manifest in your life? Well, it certainly relieves this pressure that I have to do things to get a certain result. That means there's no enjoyment. If that is really the mark of an action or the motivating factor of an action, that I have to do this to get a little bit of recognition or validation that I matter in this world, if I drop that, then do you not think that that could or might lead to a lot more contentment, ironically? Yeah, because now you're with the action. Now the action is really there for your own sake, for your own, right, your own enjoyment. And in so doing it, it also happens to be helping others around you. And further, he continues and he says, the wise person does actions, doing only actions that sustain the body. Shariram kevalam karma. Suppose you take this literally. So the wise person, the jnani, is doing actions only that sustain the body. How does this sound like if you literally take it? It's a little bit, right, controversial. So what does this mean? That they just really just breathe, that's it, and just eat? No. So you have to look at the deeper implied meaning. So the literal meaning, of course, is they give up everything and only do action. They give up work, they give up relationships, they give up all sorts of community service, give it all up, and only do actions that sustain the body. That's the literal meaning. That's how a beginner would look at this statement. And especially if one's a tamasic predominance, they will say, oh, thank you. This is a ticket for doing nothing because I'm already lazy. And when I see the Lord say they only do actions that sustain the body, instantly I drop everything and I only do actions that only sustain the body. That's called having a staff, having a dhoti or whatever, and then just walking, barefoot around a mountain and saying I'm a wise person because this is what Krishna has prescribed. So it depends on who reads the statement. That's how it will be interpreted. But the actual meaning is, if you only do actions that sustain the body, that's actually very interesting. It means that they still care about the body, doesn't it? Very opposite than what we often hear. The wise person doesn't care about the body. I'm not the body. I don't need to exercise because it's just the body. They only do actions that sustain the body. That means they care, they're mindful of the body. They exercise the body because you need the body, ironically, to still live out your life in a very happy fashion. That's the first interpretation. The second is because they've dropped this pressure that I need to do things for the sake of being validated, that my worthiness depends on your reward. The fact that I've dropped that, I am free to do those actions that are just simple and focused. And then once more, he gives a controversial statement, Tyakta sarva parigraha, they give up all possessions. Another ticket for classical beginner-like renunciation. Drop it all, sell your house, and then go, yeah, I sold my house, you haven't. That's because you will get there one day. You will one day also sell your house and give up all your possessions like me when you realize that a wise person gives it all up. So that's the wise, that's the non-wise interpretation. But is it realistic? No. You see, it might have been maybe realistic maybe a couple of thousands of years ago when our culture was totally different. So if I take this statement from 5,000 years ago and try to apply it in the modern age, it's totally, there's a mismatch. So if you look at the deeper meaning, if you look at the context of the whole Gita, it talks to two kinds of people. The first is sannyas, and the second is the grihasta. If you take the sannyasa, then sure, you're free to walk out because they give up all possessions. So if you're a sannyasi, then you can definitely take all your possessions, sell it, and they're just focusing on the self-knowledge. That is your path. So that's definitely a possibility. And that symbolizes the ultimate non-detachment. Even cut your hair, right? Give it all up. Now, that might have had a certain context in a culture some years ago, but you also have to account the modern times of today. So if we just try to rigidly live the times of the Vedic times and you apply it to the times of today, it's not going to work. So then you have to go to the second definition, and the Gita also talks today, grihasta, or the modern man-woman. And here, what it really means is converting this idea of ownership of the body, that I own this body, into that the body was created by me, that it is controlled by me, that it is entirely sustained by me, that it is a blessing of me. This idea of ownership, that it's my body, gets converted into trusteeship. Now, what is trusteeship? Well, suppose you're given by your best friend and something that's important to them, like a house. Take care of my house for a week. or my car for a month, or my baby, for maybe 3 days. So they're entrusting you, they're putting their trust into your hands. They trust you. They said, I have seen you to be a responsible human being, and I'm going to offer you this blessing from which you can learn a lot from for 3 days. And you say, yes, thank you. Thank you for entrusting me this gift, which is not only special for you, but it's also special for me because it's a new thing for me to have a baby in my arms, somebody else's. So I have to be really responsible now. So in that same way, your very body that you're carrying right now, with which we are listening to this, is entrusted to you by the grand intelligence. The intelligence which has made your body and sculpted it in a way which you're now carrying. Why has it sculpted it in a way that you're carrying? Why is it that it's a female body and not a male body, and vice versa? Why is it that some have good eyesight and some, have good, sense of smell? Why is it that some have, bigger builds, some have smaller builds? Why is it that some are more slower in the pace of speaking, some are faster in the pace of speaking? Why is it that some are artistic and some are more inquirers? Why is it, etc.? That's because of this grand intelligence, which, based on multiple causes, has assigned you this body now, which you are dearly using to figure out the truth. So ownership is the recognition that there are multiple stakeholders in your body. Trillions of organisms, microorganisms, are now contributing to your body. It's not, so when you say my body, in that moment, are you accounting the good bacteria in your stomach? I'm like, who does that? See, when we make the statement, it's my body, we don't think like this. We just make this general, abstract, vague statement, it's my body, but we miss out the stakeholders are many. The society, the air quality, the government regulations to reduce air pollution, that's also affecting the body. The food, the farmers, parents, culture, 10 years ago is also contributing to today's body. The quality of the filtration in the water, that also is a stakeholder in your body. So there are multiple stakeholders because of which your body and your mind or your brain is what it is today. So ownership is the recognition that this is not a belief, it is a fact. I am endowed this body, this life, because of many causes that have blessed me, this very instrument. And thus I use it responsibly. And using it responsibly means I use this to extract the lessons from life, because that is the highest purpose given to this very instrument. What else are you going to use it? To feed it dopamine and various chemicals? That's also possible. But the highest purpose, according to not only the Gita or the Vedas, but it's according to common sense and life experience, it is to extract lessons that benefit you and benefit the society of those around you. And when we say society, we don't mean the grandiose reaching out and changing the world. We just mean your immediate environment. That's the highest use of your body. And thus, to be endowed this body, it is entrusted to me. Thus, it is used responsibly because it's offered given a sacred role, and that role I acknowledge. And when I acknowledge that role, that reduces what's called myness, mamakara. It's my body, my right, and I can feed it whatever I want. See, you can feed it whatever you want. If I'm an owner of it, but am I an owner of it? So the baby that you will offer for 3 days, and then they're trusted. And then when they return back, the first words that comes out of baby are swear words. In other words, you taught the baby a whole bunch of swear words, and they're like, "What have you done with my child?" Right? You have scarred them for the rest of their life. So this is what we do with our own bodies. We're given this baby body, and we open up the floodgates to all sorts of material, news, social media, this and that. And then the body starts to carry these imprints and it becomes very difficult. So Ishwara is saying to you, hey, I mean, this difficulty is not an accident. It's there because you're constantly on a daily basis opening up your body to those things that though they are present, you don't have to keep on opening up your body to them. You can just say no. And it's not easy to do that at overnight, but it's definitely possible. So then what will you, now having heard this, how will your attitude change towards your body? Are you still going to continue feeding it whatever excess, there is? Or are you going to perhaps say, I am entrusted like a baby and I can't just feed it whatever I want because it's not healthy for me or for, right, my future self. Therefore, this is not an injunction that Krishna is saying. He's not saying you should convert ownership to trusteeship. He's simply pointing out it is for your own good. Because by understanding that I'm entrusted this body, the whole sense of I need to control it, I need to be a total owner of it, I need to sort of, put glamour and so much makeup and whatever, all these things on it, that starts to kind of normalize. I'm not saying get rid of it. I'm just saying it starts to normalize. It goes into a more kind of a manageable level. Because the way the society is set up is if you want a job, for instance, you're not going to walk in with a bathing suit, right? They're like, this is unprofessional. So you still got to put up something that's, professional. That's how it's set up. Okay, so this trusteeship, it's not a sense of injunction. It's simply re-understanding the world. You are entrusted to this instrument. So knowing that, what will change, having said this now? Give yourself 10 seconds. And my question to you is, having now seen that you are entrusted this body, like a friend entrusting you a baby, what will change having heard this? What 1% change will go on from now on, or maybe next week, or wherever it is?
I have to remember that I have to return this body in a form in which I have received, either at least at the same state or a better state, to the owner, who's probably the God.
Yes, beautiful. I have to return this body in a healthy state, in a relatively healthy state. At least that shows my gratitude. Thank you, owner. You have given me a healthy body, and I'm going to give you a relatively healthy body back. How about being more deliberate in what material will enter this mind? Just slightly more deliberate. Maybe if you're into news and all that, this is wonderful. Maybe just 5 minutes less or 1 minute or whatever it is. Even 10 seconds less is better than no change.
No, because you were saying about the body, but we're not returning the body. Who are we returning the body to?
Yes, so this is another, see, there's always two sides how you can look at any statement. We always alternate between, right, transactional conversation and then the absolute. So in the absolute, there's nothing to return anything to anything because there's no two realities here. So you're not really returning anything to anyone because there's no second entity to which I'm returning this body as if it's a different entity. That's one understanding. Now, I always balance that out with a transactional understanding too, and then we just kind of drop the conversation down to a normal human being level. So we always alternate between these two. And this is exactly what Krishna, how he does it, between Yoga Shastra and Brahma Vidya. So Yoga Shastra, iti Srimad Bhagavad Gita Upanishads, Brahma Vidya Yoga Shastra, Arjuna Samvada, right? So in other words, it is a samvada, it's a samvada to Arjuna. It is a discourse given to Arjuna, which mentions that this teaching, which is a samvada, a discourse of Brahma Vidya and Yoga Shastra. Yoga Shastra is how to live and understand and cope with this transactional world. That's question number one that Arjuna posed to Krishna. He said, now that I'm amidst this field of life, how do I, at a relative level, cope with the situations, right? Don't give me the high knowledge. Just tell me, how do I think right? How do I manage my emotions and, kind of manage my stifling beliefs and undo all of those distortions that I've collected and all that resentment that's been building up for years and years that I didn't have time to clean up. Just tell me, how do I do that? And so Yoga Shastra helps with that. Now, the second question, which is Brahma Vidya, he says that this individual who is thinking about returning his body to the five elements and about cleaning up his or her emotional states and problem solving and critical thinking, that very individual, the truth of that individual is none other than the whole Brahman. And so this is a constant, right, altering between these two understandings until you understand that there's no contradiction between them. You can speak at the transactional level, but it doesn't contradict the whole. Okay. Otherwise, if we just say that there's no one to return the body to, then the conversation stops. Then I can't explain about taking care of your body and knowing that it's not good to abuse it and knowing that it's healthy to use it with a sense of responsibility. So we have to drop the conversation down to a transactional level for the sake of transactional benefits, even though at the absolute. Yeah, even though at the absolute, there's nothing really to benefit. There's no person to benefit anything because you already are the whole. Yeah.
No, I see what you're saying. So in other words, while we are in a physical body, then it's transactional.
Super.
Okay. Okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. So as long as we have a mind, and a brain that's kind of, needs healthy foods and right, a clean, decent environment, then absolutely, you need this kind of talk because, you still have many more years to live in the body. And not that you are contained to the body, but still at the level of the body, we need to also talk. Yeah. Ravikant?
Yeah, so to add to that, first of all, I think our attitude changes, right? We wouldn't take it for granted anymore. That is the first change. I think you were saying something. You're augmenting that.
Good. No, I was actually saying I like that word, not taking it for granted, because it's so easy to take for granted what we are given every day, and it's just there, and it loses kind of its value, its shine, like with anything. It's just a nature, human nature, that we forget about those things that once upon a time we cherished, and it's like a new car, right? One scratch on a new car, and you freak out. And then 1 year later, like scratches here and there, it's like, yeah, okay, whatever, it's just a car. So same thing with that.
Exactly. And then people, even without that understanding and that little bit of that exercise that you just gave to all of us, even without that thinking, there are still people who care for the body, but for different reasons. But at least at this point of time, with this understanding, it would transform the way we care for the body. It is not for the, either upkeeping or upliftment, but then you really get to the nature of it and you only do the things that are appropriate for it. So it is not a moral issue or a commandment that you shouldn't do that, you shouldn't do that, but you know what to do exactly with the body. And that would be the transformation.
And to reinforce that statement, let's go back to the previous verse, which said, this verse, doing actions that sustain the wise person, the one who's liberated, doing only actions that sustain the body. They still acknowledge the presence of the body. They still acknowledge the responsibility that this body still has to go through. There's no question of disowning it. There's no question of saying that it's, not really, it's actually the truth of the body is just Ishvara. So at this level, they don't philosophize. They're just carrying the body, still exercising it, still eating the right foods. There's no question of denying any of that. And this is actually a lovely statement. It's a great reminder because I've seen so many times where spirituality and health often, they kind of have this silent connotation of contradiction, or spirituality and exercise, right? I don't exercise because, I'm just into knowledge. But if you really study, those who exercise, they have great memory, because exercise, moves that blood, makes your whole system just work so much better. So this is a beautiful reminder that the body is still relatively important until your last breath. And that's coming from Krishna. So let us not kind of discard the body and say, I don't need to exercise and I don't need to do anything because, who cares? It's just the body. I'm not the body, therefore leave the body alone. It doesn't work like that. He's just saying here explicitly that they do put effort in sustaining the action. They sustain the body's health, doing only actions that sustain the body.
So I'm going back to the ultimate goal of moksha. Is the idea that a healthy body ultimately leads to a clear mind, and then that's kind of the connection to this?
Excellent. Yeah, absolutely.
And then my other question was, I was listening to James Schwartz talk about his guru, Swami Chinmaya, and he spoke about how he was addicted to snuff. And I remember feeling disappointed in Swami Chinmaya, thinking, that you would think that that when you achieve kind of that level, that you would not have those kinds of addictions. So I have a little bit of difficulty kind of figuring that out. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Sure. Absolutely. So you see, and I'm glad you brought that up, because it's actually, I don't look at it as a problem. I look at it as humility. You see, number one, they're not trying to present themselves as some hotshot who is clean. They still have, at the level of the mind and the level of addictions, they're still there. The addiction is very hard to let go at the level of the mind and the body. You can still realize, and fully know that this body that's addicted is not me, right? The body is me, but I'm not the body. You can still know that. And absolutely, your knowledge is assimilated, it's firm, it's clear, there's no issues there whatsoever. But at the level of the body, you don't even have to take snuff. Let's take something common sense, food, right? Food, what? So one day I'm not enlightened, next day I'm enlightened, and suddenly all my addictions, my impatience is gone, my food behaviors change, my smoking habits go away. It's like, that's not realistic, because habits are deeply entrenched in the physical brain. They have actual physical connections that cannot just move based on a simple recognition that I'm free of these connections. That recognition is a recognition, but it doesn't change the physical body. And it also goes very similar to Ramana Maharishi. He had cancer on his arm, and beginner seekers, they tend to hypothesize many things. And one of them was that if you have cancer, you're not enlightened, because an enlightened person has a body that's completely pure, clean, and disease-free. It's the same thing. So whether we are speaking of Nisargadatta, smoking, or Ramana's, cancer, or Chinmaya's snuff addiction, it's the same principle. At the level of the body, there will be, or there might be, some things to still clean up, right? But will it ever be cleaned up? No, because that's a whole different, and if you clean one thing, there's something else that's going to come through anyway. So you can never have a perfect body. Let me say that. Where is perfection? At the level of Satyam or at the level of Mithya? Where does perfection live? It's Satyam. That alone, which is perfect, is Atma. Anatma, you will not find perfection at Anatma. There will always be something at the level of the mind, whether rudeness or little impatience or shouting at the students or mistreating them or asking for money here and there, right? That's all at the level of the personality, but the person can still fully know their truth. Now, ideally, what you want is, who doesn't want a teacher that knows the truth, but also is, balanced in their emotional state, they solved out their addictions. They have, they're sincerely working at their, remnants that are still yet to be resolved. They are exercising. They have their finances taken care of. They are successful in the world, relative world, right? They are not escaping the world. They do have connections, in the real world. It's also lovely to have that. But what teacher you get depends on your own karma also. So, right, some do get teachers that are kind of, very, very, very clear, but at the level of other things, such as basic, friendship or basic socializing, they're not interested. Like, I'm not interested, I'm not interested in the world or meeting you. So it depends on who you and what your karma is that will also bring you to a certain teacher that you, in a way, deserve. Yeah. But also, as you evolve, as that teacher takes you to a certain level, you might find that now that you're cleaned up through their own efforts, you find yourself attracted to somebody else. Because that somebody else now represents that new level of clarity and maturity that you resonate more with. So every teacher just ends up being a stepping stone for you. Yeah. So therefore, once again, we change the attitude from something being a problem to that very something being a blessing, to show me a certain part of myself where I agree or disagree with, and then be able through that to navigate and find my own teacher, my own path, until I say, I don't need to move anymore. I don't need to question anymore. I feel comfortable where I'm at. I don't need to sort of just keep on seeking and seeking and seeking. So everyone is within this Ishwara's order. So by definition, everyone is only ever helping you. There was not one being ever that was ever born or ever lived in this world who was there to truly injure you unless you perceived it as such. If you perceive it as a teacher, everyone's just a teacher in disguise. Ishwara in disguise, giving you a chance to look deeper in your own deficiencies and blind spots, and to clean that out by the help of others, challenges that they present to you, then everyone becomes a blessing. Now, isn't this a useful attitude to have? Wouldn't this make your life a lot more equanimous and less disturbing? Because if I don't have this, then there's only one other option as we started out this lesson, and that is to complain. And I say, it's their fault and I want things to be like this. It's just not going to happen.
Would it be correct to understand, what is being said here about sustaining the body as, neither neglecting the body nor overindulging in it?
Super. That's balance. That's exactly what we're saying. Neither neglecting it, definitely not neglecting it, nor overindulging, because if one overindulges, then, nobody likes to do that. Everyone likes to, have a level of, have a sense of balance in their body. Because when you're overindulging, you kind of, it lowers the self-esteem, it lowers the opinion of yourself. And so, and I'm sure we can all relate when we overindulged. And there's that one moment when your body says enough, right? Enough, something has to change. Does anyone have this? You let me know. This is how my body responds. So anything that I want to get rid of, I just have a little bit too much of it, and then my body says never again. Like a chocolate. I like mint chocolate. So I just have a whole mint chocolate, the whole thing, and then I feel terrible. And then from that moment on, I never again have a mint chocolate, ever. So that's possible. So in other words, even overindulging can be a way to transform you. So again, nothing here is your enemy. It depends on whether it's working for you or not, in the name of relinquishing you from these, what we call chains, these chains that are holding me down.
I think slowly but surely, it is kind of a 20-year plan. If you look back 20 years ago, and if you keep eating like that, your body will be better and your mind will be better, and it will be working for you so that you can do what you want to do.
Someone said, and I've been both healthy and unhealthy. Now I'm healthy, and I know definitely which one is better, being healthy. I was rich and I was poor. Now I'm rich. I definitely know which one is better, being rich. So why not? Okay, we're not here to dismiss in the name of saying I'm not the body, I'm not the body, because then if you say if you dismiss the body, and then the reason for that is because they say I'm not the body, then who's still doing that? Because they said I am not the body, and they're dismissing the body. So who's still doing that? The body is. So their I is still in the body. So when you say, that's why Krishna here explicitly says that the wise person understands these two orders of reality, Satya, Mithya, Atma, Anatma. And they don't put Atma or Anatma, they don't put Anatma onto Atma, and or mix up the two. And then they say, I don't have to take care of the body because I am not the body. So in other words, what they're mixing up is the I and the body and the mind. And so the whole thing gets shuffled up. But Krishna here is explicitly pointing out, yes, there is two orders of reality, Anatma and Atma. And Atma, irrespective of whether the body is taken care of or not, Atma remains free of that. But now knowing that, don't try to now say, oh, so, because Atma is immortal or is limitless, I'm now going to make this body immortal or limitless. So again, you're confusing the two things. So it's just clarity, no mixing up, just putting things in their right place. Therefore, again, it's the same conclusion. I do not kind of ignore the body in the name of some kind of a, spiritual notion that I am free of the body. The body is going to serve you, and it will go a long way. Like some exercises, Pilates or yoga moves or Tai Chi Chuan or whatever it is, something very gentle can go a long, long way. Has anyone, by the way, now you feel healthier than when you were younger? Your body's stronger now when it's older than when it was younger. It's possible if you, if you started to, perform a certain routine, a certain exercise program, it's possible. And it definitely can help a long, long way. It can go a long way with energy. For example, in my 30s, I didn't feel as energized now than in my 40s. In the 30s, it was very different. I felt not so healthy, not so strong, not so energized. Now in the 40s onwards, I would never go back to 30s because the exercise now is, stronger than ever before. The body is much stronger. It's a lot more attuned, a lot more mastered. So age, once again, does not have to mean necessarily that it's all going downhill. You can equally turn age into a blessing by simply adjusting the movements, adjusting the exercise program, adjusting the regime or whatever it is. There's always some exercise program for your body age. It doesn't matter what body age it is. So we're not now going to say, oh, but I'm not 40, I'm like 80. It doesn't matter. 80-year-olds have a different regime than a 40-year-old. That's a fact. My point is not to say how it's, not possible. My point is to show you it is possible to have a strong, healthy brain and a body. So it's definitely better being healthy than unhealthy, isn't it?
Definitely.
Absolutely. Yeah. First thing I wake up, I'm running because I know the benefits of exercise. It really does go a long way on energy, study time increases, brain thinks better, more connections to the brain. This is science-backed proof. Exercise has a major advantage in your life.
Andre, going back to that previous question of addiction, so is it okay to say, like, for an enlightened person, like kindness, compassion, selflessness, all these, like calmness, these are like natural outcomes, although they may be addicted to something which is like more like patterns or in the brain. Is it correct to say that?
Enlightenment doesn't overnight make you generous because generosity is a condition of the mind's purity. So most minds, no mind is completely pure because by the time we're, like whatever, 20 onwards, you collect a lot of impurities in your mind. And those impurities suppress the natural program called generosity and empathy and kindness and so on. So now it's not that enlightenment suddenly makes you more generous and giving. It is the work towards moksha that has made you more generous and giving and more empathetic. We keep saying moksha doesn't change anything. It just makes you recognize the person that is kind, that person I am not. That person is me, but I am not that person. That's all that quote happens with moksha. There's no change at the physical brain or mental state. This is crucial to understand. Otherwise, you'll be waiting for moksha to suddenly change your life, to change the life of the individual who you are free of. You are already free now, and you are already limitless in this moment. So then how can moksha give you, the one who is limitless, something new? Moksha is the recognition that I'm already free and limitless, whole and complete in this moment. So there's no question of moksha changing my life because I don't have a life. Life belongs to the character, to the person. But to understand that, to assimilate that vision, you have gone through the Gita lessons, you have gone through the Upanishads, you have gone through the Vedic teachings, and as a result of that, the mind was sculpted through your own hard efforts. To the point where when you do understand, people now look at you, oh, you're enlightened and you're generous. Therefore, enlightenment equals generosity. But you know better. You know much better. You say no. It's not that enlightenment made me generous. It is that the work towards enlightenment made me generous. It's just like a multimillionaire called Jim Rohn, who I listened to since 17. He said something very impactful. He said, it is not becoming a millionaire. It is not that $1 million changes your life. It is who you become as a person that changes your life. It's the same principle. Same thing here. It is who you become to, bring Ishvara into your life that makes you this wonderful person.
Andre, now that we are talking about body, saints like Ramana Maharshi or Ramakrishna Paramahamsa had their own share of body sickness. And in Vedanta, you do come across saying that there is a point where you even go beyond pain, beyond body. So how did these people conquer that?
See, I know what you're saying. One has to question the context of that statement, because if someone says, I am beyond the body and the pain, that's true. That is a fact. That's even true right now. But you still have to address the body pain. The body pain is still there. So I, Atma, am beyond the body and the pain and the pleasure and the joys and the peace. But the body, that's still having pain, that's still having peace, that's still having joy, that's still having all these, emotions that the body is designed to experience, because the body is an instrument designed to respond appropriately to the world. And the body is not my creation. It is Ishvara's design. Ishvara moves the body. Ishvara makes the body experience pain. When there is cancer, when there is a toothache, there will be pain at the level of the body. So when the wise person who's got a toothache says to you, I am beyond the toothache, is he saying or she saying, not that it's a gender, but is the wise person saying that there is no toothache at the level of the body? Well, I mean, okay, there's a little hesitation there. No, there is a toothache. There is a toothache.
There is pain.
It would be wonderful. In a perfect imaginary world, it would be wonderful. Okay, moksha equals there's no pain. But the irony of this is then there will be no wise people. Because if there was toothache or there was some issue in the body for the wise person, and that issue is not felt, then that wise person would not be able to address that issue and they would die.
Mm.
And if they die, then who will be there to teach the Veda? Because they will be dead by now. So there has to be an indicator at the level of the body mind that there is a problem, because that body is a design of Ishvara, and Ishvara moves and brings that pain in the body, and that cannot be controlled, because I am the awareness is not the governor of the universe. Ishvara is. And therefore, awareness, in the presence of me, there is a person who's going through pain. But cognitively, I understand that person I'm free of. It's just one more person amongst many in this eternal span of time. So, summary, when you hear that a wise person is beyond pain, it does not mean that there is no physical pain in the body. It just means they recognize who they are. Okay, let's do a little test. So, some, you know, fella comes up to Radhika and he goes, hey, hello, I am Janani. I am beyond physical pain. What does this mean, Radhika? Now Radhika answers. She now unmutes and she's going to tell us.
So no, I understand now as they just lose the identity of the I, and so it's not that the pain is not there. They just understand that, you know, it's not associated with the I.
Good, excellent, I love it. Okay, pass test. So that's verse 21. So now let's read verse 21 and we'll see if we understand it. I've done opposite. Instead of reading verse and then explain, I've explained and now we're going to read. Nirashiryata chit atma tyakta sarva parigraha shariram kevalam karma kurvannapnoti kilbisham.
The person who is free of expectations, whose body, mind, and senses have been mastered, who has given up all possessions, doing only action that sustains the body, does not incur sin.
Now, verse 22, reiterate this idea. They accept whatever comes their way without complaining. He starts with the first statement, yadricha labha santushtaha. So happy with whatever comes by chance. The Gita talks to two kinds of people, sannyasi and a grihasta. What about a sannyasi? Well, in those times, and we still do, right, in certain parts of India, right, they were living on alms. They're not, you know, they're not going around begging. They're just trusting that somebody, of course, you need a culture to recognize, you know, if you're wearing an ochre robe, if you don't live in this culture, there's no way someone's going to give you alms. So at those times, if you're a sannyasi wearing an ochre robe, then naturally, right, people appreciate this, so they will give to you, and you don't have to go around, you know, begging. So therefore, you're happy with whatever comes, whatever gives you, whatever alms or nuts somebody gives you, you're happy like that. Now, this one time I was going up Arunachala mountain, and a dog with my friend, a dog was you know, at the Ramana temple onwards. So a dog just sort of befriended us, and it was a cute dog. And he just didn't want to leave us alone. And he followed us like halfway up the mountain. And what we were having a discussion is, you know, how this dog is so amazing, because it's quite a long while to get up half a mountain. He just trusted that he's going to be given water and food. And this was like our discussion up the mountain, like how this dog just accepts, he's happy with whatever comes by chance. This is like the dog of this verse. And so here you're like this, you know, cute dog who's just, you know, kind of accepting whatever life gives you, you will find a way to solve the problem. Because you've done it before, you will find a way to solve it again. You're not quite ever ready to be a mother until you're a mother. You're not quite ever ready to speak until you speak. So we're not quite ever ready to do anything until life puts us in that moment. And then you find yourself just having that ability to do it anyway. So this is in reference to a sannyasi, and then in reference to a grihasta. On one hand, when a grihasta is happy, then we can lose sometimes sensitivity to our environment and become a little bit arrogant. You know, now that I'm gotten this, or then I kind of, you know, ignore your state of mind. And I forget that you too are a human being. So that's one option. Another option that can happen is when things don't go our way, then we're dramatically thrown off the center. And that can be another extreme. The third extreme, it's called a pseudo-spiritual extreme, and that is nothing affects me. So therefore, no matter what happens, the good, the bad, or the ugly. I just create this artificial composure and say, I'm beyond all this. So whether it's a happier moment, I am beyond all this. Whether it's a, whatever, terrible moment, I am beyond all this. So these are all extremes. And none of these extremes belong in this category. What Krishna here is speaking of is a healthy grihastha. So a healthy grihastha, or a jnani grihastha, here the word healthy is a jnani. A jnani grihastha recognizes nothing affects me. Just like Radhika was now saying, the pain doesn't affect me. It affects the body, and it's definitely experienced, and it's not pleasant at all, but it doesn't touch me. No scars, I'm not scarred. The body is scarred, the mind is scarred. So though nothing affects me, and that is a genuine assimilation, at the same time, when things don't go my way, I don't go off center, nor do I become arrogant. I just recognize those four possibilities. Things can go my way, totally opposite, more of or less of. And so what do I do as a wise person? I just have to throw in a new cause into the field, because that's how the field works. It's a cause-effect relationship. I have to deliver a new cause into the field that will, right, perhaps fix this problem or repair the situation or alleviate the situation. It's simple as that. It's impersonal. So their focus is on what's next. This has happened. What's next? So their attention is on problem solving. And this goes back to what Ruth is saying. On one hand, now you can say, yeah, but I don't need to solve problems because I'm beyond all problems. But there is a body. So at the level of the body, and whoever the body is associated to, there needs to be solving of problems. So it's a constant interplay between Atma, Anatma, because they don't contradict each other. As long as there is a body and the mind, there is a duty to you, whether you're wise or unwise, to solve relative issues, because that is part of living for everyone. I mean, Rama in Ramayana, he was nothing. The whole journey was just solving issues one after the other, fighting demons, straightening out the baddies, the asuras and so on. Then, trying to save Sita, and then having to fight Ravana, having to have to go back and forth with Lakshmana, right? A constant problem-solving mode. And remember that mode in the Ramayana when he lost Sita? What did Rama do? Did he just chill out and say, doesn't matter, I'm the whole. She's just, just one more piece of flesh, mucus and a bag of skin and bone. Doesn't really matter. Who cares? What did he do? No, he went around crying. Where's my Sita? Trees, where's my Sita? She's gone. Where is she? He's totally distressed. That's a human heart, okay? Because that is appropriate response. Now, he knows behind the scenes, it's all just one eternal play that's been going on forever and will never end. But at the level of the humanness, you still act appropriately. His body was still in sorrow, and he still had to do what has to be done to resolve the situation, because Ravana was having an upper hand. Okay? So therefore, the wise one knows that this cause-effect has operated for millennia, thousands of years. And you and I are here today because of what has taken place for thousands of years. Can you believe that? I think it's quite amazing. Mm-hmm. I really do. Like, our bodies now and the life that's being lived today is a product of thousands and thousands and thousands of years, since monkeys and dinosaurs and all the conquests. Who procreated with whom, I have no idea, but this is what came out. This is it. It's amazing. So now that you've came out, you have to now manage yourself for 80 or 90 years. That's how it is for everyone. Just have to wait out for that, prarabdha to burn out and say, okay, my dear, you have done all you could. It's time to give place to somebody else. Goodbye. Come again. And you're like, no, I'm not coming again. Good, you passed the test. Free from jealousy, vimatsaraha. Now, the word jealousy here actually represents all those 6 major, we call indicators that something needs to change. I won't call them enemies, they're indicators. And the first indicator that something needs to change is there's a binding form of desire that's called kama. So it's a kind of I have to do this, I have to go, I have to whatever, I have to have a relationship. Like why? I mean, you've been okay all this time. Why do you have to have a relationship? Like, why do you have to, be this person? Why? Like, have you actually asked the question why? So they haven't. And because they haven't, there's this just an unusual, irrational need that I have to or else. But if you really just question, you might find how quickly you can balance that out, that pressure that I have to. So this is the first indicator that things need to change. It's something's pushing you that I have to attain moksha. That's another big one. Why? Why do you have to attain moksha? Like, you're in a good place, you're taken care of, you have the Gita, you have the teacher. You can't speed things up here. Can you speed up your milk teeth falling out at year 6? You can say, no, I'm going to make them fall out at year 3. Can you speed up, puberty or delay your puberty? I'm just going to, get puberty around 35, just because I feel like it. No, because you don't control the show here. So there is an Ishvara's program which has designed things to be at a certain pace. And who ultimately removes that veil? You? No, my dear, no. You don't remove that final veil that makes you own up to your identity 100%. You don't do that. Your efforts certainly contribute. Who is the ultimate key maker who removes that final veil, which we call Jivan Mukta? That is Ishvara. You don't call all the shots here. So in that same way, to go around saying, I want total clarity right now, I want things to work out right now, that needs some reassessment, because the world doesn't work like that, nor does Ishvara's laws. You don't, as flower, it doesn't say, I just want to, kind of blossom right now. It takes 4 seasons for it to go through a healthy maturation. In that same way, you go through seasons, and when it's your turn, it's your turn. Meanwhile, it doesn't mean sit passively and do nothing and just wait. It means I do my work. Listen to the courses, listen and reflect on this, continue your sincerity, and one day, Ishvara ultimately removes that veil. And when it does remove that veil, you know it without a shadow of a doubt. And so this also requires patience on your part. Desire is the first, and then anger. Anger is 2 causes. When you're angry, it's usually 2 things. The first one is that there is a belief. This is a deeper one. It's a belief that you can be hurt. Because isn't anger always in reference to, I was treated unfairly, taking it very personally? So then where is your I here? It's in the person. So at a deeper level, anger is where you put your I, you identify it with the person. But if you recognize that it's not personal, it's not heading towards me, Atman, it is heading towards a person that has to deal with the situation, then things become a lot easier to deal with. So the much deeper reason what is anger is because you take it personally, but it's not personal. And the second reason, this is more at the transactional level, the way anger comes is by thinking that things need to turn out my way. So there's a certain expectation you had a vision in your mind or a feeling how it's going to turn out, and it doesn't. Then anger gets triggered. So one is at a transactional, that means I was expecting things to go my way, for him or her to whatever be like this or that. And the second, the more important reason is you're taking it personally. Your I is still at the level in that moment in the instrument. And then there is greed. Greed is where you believe that you need more than anyone else, right? You expect that, you deserve more and you're special and you're entitled. But in truth is you're just a dot. Zoom yourself out, please now. You're a little dot amoeba that is hardly like a leaf from a tree, that's blown by the wind, that the great forces of nature just step on and nobody even notices. So sometimes we just need to bring that perspective, not to insult, but just to put things in perspective. So no, whatever I have, thank you, Ishvara, let me make the most use of it. This is an antidote to greed, just gratitude. Gratitude that I have and it's enough. What more do you really need than air? I mean, how about that? A permission slip to be happy. I am breathing, I have food, and I have a roof. Simple. Again, you really choose whether you feel contentment or not. It is up to you. What standards do you have? And there's moha. Moha is carrying false beliefs, which are not looked into. That means delusion. Excessive pride, mada. Excessive pride, when there's excessive pride, just remember this. How many stakeholders have contributed to your life today? Wow, many, right? So this is not my knowledge. My knowledge is my teacher's knowledge. My teacher's knowledge is their teacher's knowledge. My success is all my customers. Thank you, customers, etc. So this also needs to be brought into perspective. And jealousy is, according to a certain analysis, is the lowest, in the sense that jealousy makes you unhappy when you see other people's happiness. And for this reason, all the other ones are about me. But this one is where I see somebody else who is successful and I feel a certain smallness or incompetence in me. So jealousy really just means that I'm once again seeing myself as an incompetent, unworthy individual because I'm not looking at those things that I am given and I'm not making the best use out of them. I'm comparing myself to them. I'm not really appreciating that they deserve it, nor am I acknowledging that there is an Ishvara's order here, which brings forth to everyone exactly what they deserve according to their past causes. So jealousy is really just a sense of incompleteness or incompetence. And the way to negate this is just to remember you have certain competencies, you have certain skills and talents in you. And those skills and talents is what Ishvara is asking of you no more. Let others shine in their field. You shine in your field. Wouldn't this be a little bit better way to look at this instead of comparing? Therefore, we might now acknowledge I am brilliant in my area. This is what you're saying to yourself. I am brilliant in my area, and that is all that I need for my own, contentment. I need not to compare myself to others. In fact, let me thank you for being brilliant in your area because your contribution has allowed me to be this person today. Indirectly, I may not see it, but somehow we are connected. In fact, even jealousy can be converted into a positive. Use it as an inspiration at least. Wow, you have worked so hard. You have put effort, more time and energy and more focus. Let me use you as an inspiration for me to get my stuff together. Maybe I can just put a little bit more focus in my own work. Thank you. So jealousy is not hard to conquer. It is, like anything, a means of inspiration and to help you if you choose it to make it that way through a mere attitudinal change. It's all about attitude, really, end of the day. All about attitude. And finally, unaffected by opposites. Okay, so even-minded in reference to success and failure. And I'll close up with this. Okay, so can you have comfort without discomfort? Can you have discomfort without comfort? No, because after you have gone through discomfort, what comes through? What comes after discomfort? Comfort, right? So to now expect that I'm always supposed to have comfort, that messes with one's emotional landscape. By acknowledging that every person's life, including yours, is made of comfort and discomfort, How might this make it easier for you to cope with when both inevitably show up? Might as well just acknowledge discomfort will come my way. Brilliant. So now the question is, how do you maintain this strength amidst these opposites? And how do you retain this recognition that both comfort and discomfort will come? And I'll give you two ways. The first one is to reassess periodically how things are going. Hey, how are things going in your life? How are things going in my life? It's a private conversation. How are things going? What's going on with my health? How am I? Am I missing anything? Do I need more this? What's going on? Am I okay? Are you okay? You're talking to yourself, really. Now, what's the benefit of this? The benefit is, see, every once in a while, we start to create stories in ourselves. And these stories, because things are always happening, these stories start to color in how you interpret everything. And the more they start to color in situations, the more it creates pressure in the person, and they start to attack external situations. And usually those who are attacked are those closest to you. Now, did you ever ask, why is it that those who are closest often get attacked the most? And there are three reasons why we often attack those who are close to us. The first is because those who are closest won't leave you. They know that you won't leave them. They know that. So there is a certain safety in expressing raw, unfiltered emotion because you're not going to leave them. Will they express that kind of an emotion towards their boss? No way, because the stakes are too high. My boss will leave me, but you will not leave me. So I'm allowed to express my raw, unfiltered emotions. That's the first reason why we attack those closest towards us. The second is called displaced frustration. Displaced frustration is, instead of taking accountability, accountability means to recognize that I am accountable. I have accounted for what is happening to me. I was in some way involved in where I'm at right now. That's what accountability means. So instead of taking accountability, then what happens is we lash out externally towards those who we think are just slightly involved or have contributed to this frustration. Because you're always with them, right? You're always together. That's why it's called displaced frustration. So in some way you were connected to me, and if only they did slightly that, I would have not been in this situation right now. It's common human behavior. If only you got a different, if you marry a different guy, or or different husband, or this or that, or you got a different job, or you did a different profession, if you only did that, I would have not been in this frustrated mode right now. That's displaced frustration. What's happening here? Instead of taking accountability, that it is my own responsibility to look at my own emotions, my own state of mind, it's much easier to project it outwards and attribute that to somebody else's fault. And the third reason is to confront the truth that it is my responsibility to take care of my well-being. To confront that, believe it or not, that is the hardest thing to do, to accept that. And so much easier thing is to create or rewrite the story that you are the villain. Because the brain always looks at the path of least resistance. So it always rewrites the story by projecting it outwards, and you are the villain, and I am in this position because of your presence, or you did something, or you didn't do something. So these three are to be expected, because most will, kind of do this. But the point is to rewrite your own stories by periodically checking up. And the last one, how to remain strong when comfort and discomfort comes, and we'll close, is, believe it or not, is to allow yourself to be emotionally affected. Suppose I put myself in a spiritual pseudo state. Nothing affects me. Are you ever going to grow from that? No. If you once in a while have this humility, like Arjuna, what did he do? He actually cried on the battlefield. He allowed himself to be emotionally affected by the situation of life. And that caused the entire discourse of the Gita to be imparted upon him. So when you become vulnerable and you allow yourself to be emotionally affected, ironically, that is the very thing you need to make a massive change, because now that becomes relevant to you. And now you really want to look for the solution. That's exactly what caused the whole Gita to take place. Arjuna didn't say, I am spiritual, I am a warrior, and a warrior never sheds tears. He was honest, he was a human being, and he got the greatest teaching of all. So these two ways is how we can cope with these constant sense of comfort, discomfort. The first one, reassess your state. How am I? Talk to yourself. How am I? How am I doing? And the second is, once in a while, allow yourself to actually be affected. If you just say, I'm Atman, I'm unaffected by all this, no change is going to happen. So I keep on, can you see how it's not one-sided or the other? It's always both. And that's what makes a full, healthy human being. Yadrcha labha santushtaha dvandvati to vimatsaraha samah siddhava siddhaucha kritva pinani bhadyate.
The one who is happy with whatever comes by chance, who is unaffected by the opposites, free from jealousy, and even-minded with reference to success and failure, is not bound even though performing action.
Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Avashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.